Good morning, everybody. Mr. Eckert, of course, here. So today, this week, we're going to focus on Roman customs and Roman culture and things like that, as opposed to any grammar that we do. So this is about Roman law, just a little introduction. Probably won't go past any more of this, but we're going to focus on what they did before, how they got their law, and then what happened afterward when they expanded and all that kind of stuff. So here we go. So how did Roman law start, if you can call it that? So if you remember, in the beginning of Rome's history, we had 7 kings, right? Romulus was one of those kings. And we had 7 of them, and they pretty much did all the ruling. They came up with all the laws and the financial decisions and all that kind of stuff. That was up until 509 BC when the people kind of took over and they established a Roman Republic with a Senate and all that kind of stuff that made financial decisions and whatnot, but they did not write down any actual laws. Because the Romans, different tribes and stuff like that, had already possessed a body or a group of customary non-written laws based on customs and traditions. They were called jus, and the actual customary laws at the time only applied to Roman citizens, and it was because of that, it was called jus civile, which is civil law or law of the citizens, right? So it only applied to the citizens. These citizens of Rome were divided into 2 classes. The patricians, which were the rich noble people, made all of the decisions in the Senate and things like that. And the plebeians, or what we know are the plebes, or members of the common people, the blacksmiths, the farmers, relatively poor people compared to the noble patricians. And it was because of these fights of these two groups, the plebes and the patricians, that laws actually got to be written down. So we have these customary non-written down laws, right, the jus, and they're doing pretty good for a little bit, but the people that were really in charge were their patricians. They had official jobs, government jobs of pontifices, to decide lots of different decisions, and ruled about decisions and what should happen and punishments and stuff of these customary laws. Because they were part of the same class as the patricians, the plebes felt that they were biased against them, and they would go against the interest of the plebes and go more towards the patricians. So the patricians wanted a written down law so that decisions should be clearly based on what the law actually says and not somebody's bias against somebody else. And that's when they came up with the 12 tables. As you can see, about 50 years from 509 to 549 BC happened when they came up with these 12 tables. 12 tables is literally what it sounds. It's 12, we could say amendments, kind of compared to our Constitution. It is the foundation of the Roman law. It is the actual first legal text of the Roman state, and it lasts for a really, really long time. It did not only just apply for, just the citizens, like don't steal and don't murder and all that. It did, but it also had religious law, legal procedures, property values, all that kind of stuff in it as well. So it was really good set of laws. More importantly, it did not rewrite any existing law because, they weren't actual existing written down laws yet. It did not create new laws at all. It actually just transferred over the customary laws into a written form, which is now going to be called lex or legis, meaning law. So that goes well for a really long time. Here's the problem, though. Remember, all of those were for Roman citizens, which were part of the original, as you can see in the tan here, the original kind of Roman Empire. But as they expanded, what are they going to do with all those other people in green? Are they going to follow the same laws? Do they have their own set of laws? What are they going to do with those? So there was a lot of discussion about what would happen in the future during this time of the emperors and stuff like that when they're expanding the Empire of Rome. And so, with Rome's expansion, Rome's law expanded as well. Instead of making like one set of laws for everybody, they still had the set of laws for the Roman citizens, the 12 tables, right? Because they're pretty privileged during this time. They kind of get rid of taxes for people, citizens to pay for a little bit, and have the people in the Roman Empire do it. But we don't know who has jurisdiction, which laws have jurisdiction between like some empires and, or at least some parts of the empire and the Roman cities and citizens. So basically, they developed two new branches with the Roman citizen laws, right? The 12 tables. They put two new laws, branches of laws that were developed. Laws of the people, which means basically everybody else besides Roman citizens had to follow the laws of the people. And then like the natural law, which is, if a river passes through this way, you're going to get this half and I'm going to get this half. Natural type of stuff. So they had three sets of laws now instead of unifying under one, and that lasted for, a bunch of good times as well. People kind of dealt with it and things like that. Up until this guy. Now, before Justinian, there was a period of time where they allowed a bunch of the Roman Empire citizens to become Roman citizens. And that was all well and good, but it still didn't unite them under one law until this guy. So, if you remember, the empire basically crumbled. We have the West and the East. We divided it for the West and the East. The East became the Byzantine Empire. The West eventually fell to a series of Germanic invasions until its collapse in 476. So when Justinian comes up, he is ruler of the Byzantine Empire. He is an emperor that does very well in succeeding and taking over places and conquering places that the Western territories had lost, like Spain and parts of Italy. Here's kind of what his empire looked like. You see Italy and Greece and parts of Spain were part of it. But he had a problem. He had the challenge of controlling this whole entire empire, and he saw before that it didn't work very well because, the Germanics came in and they were part of the empire at one time and didn't like it, and so they kind of took it apart. So he wanted to create a sense of unity where other cultures, languages, not Latin, were kind of, the main thing, and he wanted to incorporate that into his empire. And one of the ways he did this was to unify the empire through law. So, and again, like I said, in the 3rd century, they had a large amount of these inhabitants of this empire were citizens of Rome and subject to its law. So he was like, well, let's just take that and improve it. So he came up with what we call the Justinian's Code. He formed a commission of people, jurists, as we say, to compile all of the existing Roman law into one document, pretty much. We had all of these three sets of laws that he wanted to put into one thing, and he wanted to convey culture and history, tradition, and language, and all that kind of stuff. This is when it is called the Justinian's Code. You may have heard of it before, but it's all one kind of element. Even though it's three, it's all three in one kind of thing. So it consisted of 3 parts: the Digesta, the Code, and then the Institutes. And all of these books put together are called Corpus Juris Civilis, which is the body of the civil law. So let's talk about what they were. The Digests were basically all of the laws and all of the punishments, everything like that put together. The Code was the actual laws of the empire, imperial constitutions, legislation, financial stuff. So the first part is just the compilation. The second part is basically the actual laws that they're going to use. And the third one is a workbook, as you could say. Excuse me. For students that were studying law. Sorry about that. And the fourth part, which really isn't part of it, is laws that were created to summarize the Constitution and create new laws and things like that. So how did these do? Well, these lasted until the fall of the Western Empire in 1453, and it was forgotten pretty much after that until the Middle Ages when they went to the Crusades. They brought back manuscript copies of Justinian's Code, rediscovered, reproduced, studied, and they came up with new editions of this, new laws and new kind of forms of it. Even today, some people borrowed the 12 tables and things that they came up with from in parts of Africa, Latin America, Europe, Middle East. Not so much America because they were more English and French, but they still had a little bit that was kind of based off of the 12 tables. So there you go. That's the Roman law system. There is an assignment in OneNote/Teams. Make sure you get that done. It is all in English. It'll be pretty easy. I think it has all the resources for you to do it, and you'll be good. All right. So have a good rest of your day.